Yeah, hello, I'm Charlie Lauf. I'm one of the Modern Languages Fellows here. I'm the fellow in German. I've written a book on Rilke, who's a 20th century poet writing in German, but who also later on wrote in French. The book came out towards the end of the first lockdown at the end of June. So yeah, Rilke is a very important modern German poet. I mean, really the most important, I suppose you'd probably say. You can tell that because he's been translated a great deal throughout the 20th century since his death in 1926, really, with loads and loads of translations, particularly in America. So he's one of these poets who's, he's an object of academic study, but he's also read a great deal by kind of readers of poetry, who are quite a wide group of people. And so I wanted to write a book which talked about him, because the poet I've loved for a long time. And oddly, there's not really a good sort of single work to refer students to if they're working on Rilke, because he's also a poet I teach a lot. And so I wanted to write a book which was useful to students, which fulfilled my own desire to write about Rilke's poetry, and which would also be accessible at least to sort of committed readers of modern poetry, not just those who read German poetry, but any language really, and particularly English. And then also at the same time, and some people I think thought that perhaps that couldn't be done, but I think it can, a book which addresses also specialists and gets them to look at his work again. And so to that end, I've written what turns out to be quite a large book, much bigger than I was really expecting originally, which looks at the whole of his work. So right from the very earliest stuff right to the very end, where he wrote actually in French, which a lot of people don't know about, but he ended up turned into a kind of French poet at the end. And also taking in his work as a translator, so a translator of other poets into German, of which is a huge amount, including also his novel, which kind of needs to be in there because it's too important to miss out, but otherwise this book really focuses on his poetry. And what it is really is close readings of a large selection of his poems, which from the beginning right to the end, taking in all the major works, but also a lot of the lesser known stuff as well. I work mostly on poetry, that's what I'm interested in above all, and it's possible working on poetry to dot between different areas. I do work on Goethe and then also on Rilke, Hölderlin, and also later poets. Yeah, working on poetry, it's perfectly possible to not confine oneself to one particular period, but to look at connections between periods. The big debate at the moment in German studies, as in most branches of humanities really, is how to respond adequately to the Black Lives Matter movement and to the debates about diversity and decolonisation which have come out of that. There are not very many writers of black or even other ethnic minority descent writing in German. There are quite a few writing at the moment, but there's not a history of that. And not many have yet established themselves as kind of leading voices within German literature. So it's quite hard even to expand the curriculum of things that students can be asked to look at, for example, although of course it is happening. Is doing quite a lot in the way of trying to get writers to come here and tell us about what they're doing and to enlarge the debate. Yes, so there is a writer who is quite well known in Germany at the moment, who must be about the same age as me, he's around about 50, and he's called Navid Kermani, and he's the son of Iranian immigrants into Germany. And he's someone who I've begun to read and would like to spend more time working on. And my point of interest in him is really that he's a writer who is interested very much in the German tradition itself and has come to writing via that tradition and then also brought the particularity of his own background to it. Yes, so Kermani has introduced some what are certainly new ways of writing, I think, and is recognised as such. I need to get to know those ways better than I do at the moment. And lots of his books are very long, so it takes a while to get into them. But yeah, I would like to look at him more closely. What I really like about being Queen's is above all the students, I suppose I'd say. Lots of very good students, and it's great to be able to see them develop from the point of their arrival right out to the end and then beyond, keep in touch with them beyond. And then I suppose mostly the colleagues that I get to work with, though we haven't seen much of those over the last year. I mean, beyond that, then it would be the kind of freedom that the job gives you. So although it's incredibly hard work term and one has too much to do at once and it's not always that easy, once you get to the end of terms, take a huge breath and then really very free as to how you arrange your time. And that's a huge benefit. You don't get that in many jobs, I don't think. I mean, the last year has clearly been unlike any other I've ever come across in Queen's or elsewhere. And what surprised me most about it actually is how well it has actually functioned. I mean, when we thought what we were going to have to do, put everything online and not see each other really for a year, it didn't really seem feasible. And it seemed very difficult at first. But actually, it's more or less functioned. And I think that really is a sort of testament to Queen's just kind of getting on with things, finding ways to deal with the problems after they've come up. And that's very much what the students have done. I've been very impressed by the students because this term they weren't expecting to be at home, yet they mostly were. And they've just buckled down and got on with it and managed to keep in touch with us and with each other. So I think it has sort of shown a certain resilience in Queen's, really.